Right, welcome to another Honda CB200 video. In this video we take a carburetor looking like this. Absolutely manky and horrible. Absolutely not a way to store it. The bowl's all full of gunk, etc. I didn't store these right. And we take the carb from this to looking like this. So this is all cleaned, degunged, just finishing off the valves and everything and all the jets on this. Now, due to it getting all blocked up and seized up because I didn't store it correctly, I have chosen to take some quite extreme measures to clean these. I have to really stress, this is not how you should clean carburettors at all. I'm quite concerned that this process may in fact do serious harm to the carb and its parts, but after you see what state it was and the difficulty I've had getting them off the bike, you'll maybe appreciate why I've decided to take this drastic measure, and also as a bit of an experiment to see actually if this method works, what harm it does, what good it does. And we won't really know how good it is until we get it on the bike and maybe get the bike running with them. When this came out of the process, I shit a brick because the process I've used is vinegar, and what this actually does is it does actually eat into the surface slightly, but does get rid of all the grunge, all the gunk, everything from it, but obviously eats into the surface. So I've now gone over this with a very soft brass brush to sort of brush it off. You might be able to just make out in some of these areas in here the slightly powdery matte finish that there has. So with this one almost finished, I've got some more jets to do, but this is how all the needles are now looking, all cleaned, degunged. So the process is quite simple. Take 1 tub of vinegar, malt vinegar, 5% acidity, thereabouts, and submerge the carb into it. But this one's actually really quite khaki, so I might have to give this a bit of a scrub first and a clean up to get rid of the surface dirt, so it can then get in and get rid of all the residue from the petrol and all the rust on the choke arm. So I'm going to give that a clean up and then submerge it completely in vinegar for about 24 hours. That's how long this one was in, 24 hours in fresh vinegar. So I'll clear the decks, clean that one up, and we'll get it in the vinegar tonight. Right, give this scrubbed and in the vinegar, and that's me done for tonight. Slurp of tea. So just some simple carb cleaner. Right, just for the purposes of clarification, I in no way endorse, support or recommend this process for cleaning carburettors, but with the state of these, and as a bit of an experiment, I'm going to do this a second time. The other carb looks really blingy shiny, but we'll find out when it's on the bike if it's actually worked or had some catastrophic damage due to this process. But this one, I'm hoping that through this process we'll get rid of the rust on the choke lever, here, get rid of this rust, get rid of all this crud and gunk all around the outside of it, etc., in here, around there. Also get rid of all the petrol residue and varnishing, etc., that's on the inside of this, and in particular the float bowl there. So, you know, hey ho, in it goes. So that's only just submerged, so I'm going to whack some more in, and this is all I'm using. This one is Asda malt vinegar. Doesn't give me an acidity percentage, but other malt vinegars from supermarket stores generally, and malt vinegar generally is 5% acidity, so not very much, but still it will eat through this aluminium housing of the part relatively quickly. So the other one was left in for 24 hours, and this one likewise, I'm gonna also leave in for 24 hours, and so we will get this back, and you will be here as we pull this out of the vinegar bath. So put that to one side, and we'll see that again tomorrow evening. In the meantime, I'm just going to finish scrubbing the top of the cap here, and get rid of all this sealant on here and just scrub it. I didn't put this in the acid bath previously, so give this a scrub and get rid of the sealant that's all over it. Right, here we are back again. Moment of truth. What state is the carburettor in? So let's bring you up here. So the big reveal. What state is the carburettor in? Okay. Here's the bowl. Right, here we are after a good scrub. So you can see that got rid of most of the crap and the crud. Now it's job of going through with a pick and just picking up any other bits of crud that happen to be in there. The rust has come off the arm there, etc. Got a nice movement inside. No evidence of is it varnish, I think it's called. That's looking pretty good, pretty tidy, but obviously we've got sort of a mattish finish to it. So the next thing to do is to actually give it a good clean up wire brush, etc., which I shall do in a bit. But yes, that's looking really nice. Right, so now I've got the carburetor to this state. We don't need to shine it up a bit. It's a little bit cold, if I say. Let's give this a go, shall we? So that's us done with the soft brass brush. I'm now going to go at some of the harder rust on the carburettor along here. I'm then going to scrub up the internal parts, etc. Just one thing to really add with doing this is that the the wheel does lose the little fibres, so you've got to be really careful, and a close inspection and another clean and a tidy up, etc., to make sure that none of those little fibres from the brush have actually come loose inside the carburettor, etc. So that's a big thing just to be aware of, and make sure you're really careful if you're going to follow this, which I don't recommend you do. Anyway, I'll finish cleaning up and we'll look at all of this when it's all shiny, etc. Gaskets should be here in a couple of days, so I'll be able to get these all finished, tidied up, and potentially back on the bike. Right, both cars are now clean and tidy, and all the jets, etc. are cleaned, and I think they're all okay. Just waiting on the seals to arrive, and in the meantime what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish cleaning up some of the rust that's on this arm and on the other one, and I've decided I'm going to paint this. Now I've only got some, I'm going to paint it gloss red. I've only got some acrylics, so I'm going to undercoat it, then spray it with some acrylic gloss red, and then use some of that automotive gloss that I've got for the other parts to cover it, and if it doesn't last very long, it's not the end of the world, but I just thought that might make it look quite nice and smart. So I'm just going to mask all this. I'm going to carry on taking the rust off this, get rid of all the rust, and spray it. I've got to change the venue for doing this. It's now -2 outside, and the carriage is freezing, so I've come inside into my indoor studio to do this. So yeah, we'll carry on derusting this, then we'll mask off the whole thing, undercoat this, and then spray it in a gloss red, I think, if I've got a gloss red. Right, here are the two carbs now sanded, cleaned off, derusted as best I can, and I'm now literally just going to grease it with a bit of acetone. Just go over So I drilled out the hole in here, which takes the split pin in there to hold the rod in place. That's all been drilled out and is nicely derusted and tidy. So there we are. So no more fingers on that. And then I'm going to start the ball rolling with some simple fine surface primer. It's something I use in the model making that I get commissions for occasionally. So it's for plastic and metal, and it's in white. And then I'm going to be using a gloss red. So this is a Tamiya X7, which is an acrylic. It's in the gloss range though. And yeah, so give this a mix, warm it up a bit, and I'm going to spray that on. In line with all this video, would not recommend this process at all. But once I've got this on and it's all dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat it in a clear automotive varnish that I've already used on some of the other parts. So hopefully that will fix this, secure this in place, etc., and it shouldn't be a problem. Obviously this gets worn as you handle it to put the choke on, but hopefully this should suffice. And what I might also do is just on the little stub here where the adjustment rod goes on. So this is the rod, and it attaches to there, and then obviously this one lever then activates both choke levers, and I might actually put a little bit of heat shrink around that just to make a nice surface and reduce some of the wear and tear. So yeah, so I'll get this mixed up and warmed up. We'll then surface prime it and go from there. Right, there they are, nicely lubricated and white. Right, so there they are. Nicely painted with the gloss black. The gloss isn't too glossy, but then the finish of the metal in the surface primer wasn't the best. So I'm just going to leave these to dry now, probably for 24, 48 hours, etc. Get them really dry properly. So those are now painted. They look a bit purpley on the camera, but they are red. So they're now done, glossed, dried, so I'll keep them indoors for a bit longer, make sure they're nicely dried, get all this off, and I'll give you another look. But that's the carbs on. The next step on the carbs is to put the seals in, replace all the seals. They've arrived. Just waiting for the hoses, the fuel hoses and the drain hoses. They're arriving hopefully next week, and the carbs should be done and finished, and we can get them back on the bike. I've also cleaned out the cables as well, the throttle cables, so we'll lay the cables in and refit the carbs, and I'll show you doing that in a future video. So thumbs up, hope you liked it, hope you've enjoyed this video, and thumbs up, subscribe, and I look forward to talking with you next video. Cheers, bye bye.